Scarcity was always a thing. It taught me to live with very little and to live very simply. Sometimes when you have sufficient resources, when you have lots of money, you can't really learn how do you budget for certain things and be smart with it. Right? So I learned all these things growing up. For $1 or $2, you can live and eat very simply. So I started life a little bit on the back foot. I grew up in a family that most people would deem as not complete. When I was born shortly after, when I was 2 weeks old, I was single parent with my dad who had to work full-time to support the family. And because of that, he couldn't really take care of me as well. And he couldn't really afford to pay for help as well. So he had to seek some favor from my aunt and my uncle. They very kindly took me into their family. In one sense, I have a broken family. And in another sense, I have a complete family. For sure, the differences was obvious to me from a young age. I realized I was a little bit different. Peers around me tend to have more. Not everyone, but by and large, because I went to the so-called top schools in Singapore. When we have to talk about our family, right, most people have the society will deem as a complete family. They talk about what their dad do, what their mom do. I always have to either leave out some details or over-explain myself. At first, I was a bit uncomfortable, wasn't really proud of, but eventually I learned to accept it and live with it. Got to be thankful for the things that I have, rather than harp over things I do not have. I think I don't feel jealous, I don't feel envy. I think it's just a sense of awareness, right? A sense of pragmatism that, okay, well, I'm not in the same privileged position that most people around me are in. It made me realize that actually life could be better in a positive, in a good sense. So I came to realize that if I had wanted more, if I wanted more material things, if I wanted better experiences, then I had to be more resourceful to find money. I learned a lot through my schooling life, not really through studying. In fact, I think I returned a lot of the knowledge to my teachers and schools. I learned a lot more from competitive sports from a young age that I still apply to my life and my business today. Every one of us has some form of strengths or talent. Some of us discovered it earlier than others. So for me, I didn't really start that early. I was talent scouted to the long distance running team when I was midway through primary 5. Nowadays, people start as young as 2-3 years old in sports like gymnastics, karting, golf, tennis. So they start very young. For me, it was not that young. It was 11 years old, thereabout. That was when I think the school coach or teacher realized that, hey, this guy somehow without training can run long distance faster than most people. But was I the most talented? Of course not. Maybe amongst the school team I was. But once we go to the national level, when I had to compete with similar age group from all around the country, then I was realized that, hey, I was the top few, but I was quite far from some of the people who either started very young or were more talented. And throughout my whole running journey and career, from primary 5 where I started all the way to JC2, that's 7 years for me to get to the top of my age group. So you can imagine a 7 years journey of consistent multiple trainings week in, week out, many success when you have a good race, and many failures when you didn't do well in training or you run a race and you messed up. So I had to fail so many times. I had to work so hard day in, day out, week in, week out. Tasted a lot of victory, tasted a lot more losses to be able to reach the top. Yeah, so I learned the virtue of hard work, of consistency, of pushing on when it's difficult, physically, mentally, to eventually get to the top. It was really just a journey that I continually put a foot ahead of the other, kept improving myself to eventually get to the top. Yeah, so I applied all those lessons eventually when I started this business. Fortunately, that also turned out very well for me. I think it's not a matter of like your situation now or where you start. The more important thing to ask is, can you do anything about it? And do you want to do anything about it? As long as you're willing to keep working at it, to improve yourself, to improve your situation, somehow, one way or another, the universe will answer your call for help through means that you will never imagine. So along the way, all the success, all the good things I've had, they don't come that easily. So I think it's all about staying true and consistent to yourself, right? And be very accountable for the actions you take every day. So as long as you are willing to be truthful to yourself, to keep putting your best foot forward every day, I believe eventually the help will come, the success and all the good things will come. This is one thing that I really learned from this whole journey. Another thing is that nothing stays permanent or forever. So if you are in a bad situation, bad space, or somewhere that you're not happy with, believe that it will not last as long as you are willing to do something about it. Of course, if you succumb to your situation, to fate, then nobody can really help you. But if you are willing to help yourself, willing to pull yourself out of the rut, you realize that there will be many helping hands. So nobody does everything alone. Nobody achieves everything alone. But ultimately, it's still got to start with yourself. People cannot help you if you don't want to help yourself. No. Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one who started life on a little bit of back foot. There are also many people in unfortunate situations, some maybe even worse than me. Ultimately, I believe that it's not what happens to you, but it's what you do about it. If you are willing to accept where you are and take 100% responsibility for your own growth, for your own success, then eventually all the good things will come. Sometimes when you're in a rut or in a bad space, it's hard to see things beyond that. But I'm very thankful for all the difficult moments, all the hardships that I went through. Because if I didn't go through all these hard knocks early in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today, not anywhere near. So if you're going through difficult times, tough times, I would say good for you, like really good for you. Because that's where you grow and that's when you learn the most as well. And if you can really get through these tough times and come out on top, in the future when you face similar difficult situations, it'll be very hard for you to be affected by them. So the more hardships, the more difficulties you can endure and go through and come on top, the more successful you will be eventually. So taking all those lessons that I learned through sports, through life, when I was young, I eventually joined the insurance industry at 21 years old, and the rest was history. It's been a good journey. 13 years on, I'm leading one of the very well-known and top organizations in Singapore. Despite being a relatively young team, we have been the top in the company for the past 3 years. I'm leading the life that I've always wanted. There's a quote by a philosopher called Seneca. He said that luck happens when preparation meets opportunity. That's very true in my career and my business as well. If you're not well prepared for the opportunities that may come, even when the opportunity is presented right in front of you, you will not be able to seize it. I always strive to do better and make sure that I am good enough so that when a situation, when opportunity presented itself, I would be able to grasp it. If you have watched to the end of this video, I hope you have taken away a thing or two that would be useful in your life, and I'll see you in the next video.